So allow me to introduce myself, for those who don't know. My name is Bookie Rebecca Kahane, and I'm the art curator for this year's Life in Colour visual art exhibition. Also, I would like to introduce today my privilege to be joined by these outstanding individuals, the panelists, with a wealth of expertise and also a unique perspective. Allow me to introduce, first of all, Adex Lava. Adex Lava is a mixed media artist with innovation in the field of contemporary art. We also have Delphia Natrum, Education Officer for Tibet. We also have Jalim Udovic, who is a sculpture artist, an accomplished visual artist in the field of sculpture, both here in St. Lucia and also in other regions of the islands and countries. We also have Bernice Jeanette Lewis, who is the director and founder of Joey Innovative Learning Solutions. And lastly, we also have Ted Stantiford, artist and educator. Allow me to say a few words on each of these individuals. And so I'll ask for your continued attention here as I go through my notes and express to you the talent that we have before us on the panel this morning. Adex, born in Castries, St. Lucia. I won't put your date of birth, actually. No one needs to know your date of birth. We have a multi-artist who is a writer and also a visual artist, with a cultural ragamuffin installation artist who is able to create events and also curate events, as well as being a political activist. He draws his interest in the arts and also in the law. Adex is a creative who works and focuses on savage beauty of our human experiences. He is the founder and provocative art studio known as the Walk-In Ancestors. At this stage, I'll allow you, Adex, to say a few words about yourself.
Oh, okay. This is where I get my 3 minutes. Okay. Thank you for being here. I want to thank the panelists and everybody. The sponsors also. I have an art installation at the Derek Walcott Square. I encourage everyone to go there. I do want to thank the sponsors that helped make it possible for me, which would be Blueprint, Greening the Caribbean, Paints Plus, Creed Cool, Visual Productions, The Cell, and of course, CDF. I'd also like to acknowledge the land that we're on and recognize that we came here as colonists, visitors, and enslaved. And it's important to remember the names and the voices of Kalinago and Taino people that have lived on these lands in peace before they were invaded, extracted, and colonized. This brings me to the conversation today. We meet under the shadow of a new piracy, not the kind where wooden ships raided our coast, but where silicone empires steal something even more precious, our stories, our rhythms, the very sound of our struggle. And they do it while smiling, calling it progress, and if replacing the artist with an algorithm is some kind of liberation, not just another master. Let us speak plainly. AI that creates art by cannibalizing the work of the Caribbean painters, poets, musicians is not a tool, it's a crime. Do you think that AI that generates the Caribbean landscape knows the weight of Dunstan St. Omar's brushstrokes as he paints the soul of St. Lucia? Does it understand the rebellion in a Mighty Sparrow calypso, the grief in a Lorna Goodison poem, the sweat in Jean-Michel Basquiat's line? No. It's only extraction, like the plantation owners who saw our ancestors as labor, not as people. They've taken our carnival, mass designs, without asking. They've fed our reggae, our calypso, our chutney into their data sets without paying. Our patois to sell authentic Caribbean chatbots, this is not innovation. This is some old theft without a blockchain receipt. What if I told you that what I've just read was all written by an AI agent, not a tool, but something called DeepSeek? Today, I'm here to tell you a cautionary tale and propose that some of these agents are just extracting more or far more from us in the human race that it is benefiting us as a civilization. This is who I am, and this is how I present my conversation.
Thank you so much for that. Allow me to introduce our next panelist, and this will be Delphemia Natrum, who has served as an education officer for several years. She also has a BA in Visual Arts in First Class Honours, University of West Indies, as well as studying in Pennsylvania and other locations. She's certified in CVQ assessor, trainer, and also verifier. She poses a range of art skills spanning from 2D to 3D forms and is also certified as an art therapy life coach. Welcome, Ms. Delphemia Natrum.
Good morning, fellow panelists and everyone else. I hope this morning that I can weigh in and take a pragmatic approach to AI and its role or threats, opportunities that it may possess for artists, for students, and learners in general.
Excellent. I'm glad to also say we have the amazing Sted Stanford, who took a lot of convincing to be part of this panel today. You guys were all so responsive. So let me introduce Ms. Stanford, who is an artist raised in St. Lucia, talented media artist, whose work has entertained not only St. Lucians, but also people across the globe. Over the years, Mr. Stanford has expressed his creativity in mixed tapes, paintings and drawings, music videos, animated videos, and also digital artwork as well. In his teenage years, Mr. Stanford attended St. Mary's College and later attended Sir Arthur Lewis College. After being successful CSEC and GCE qualifications, he was then employed as a virtual artist instructor at his alma mater.
Good morning, everyone. As you listen to my biography, you can tell that in my career, I actually evolved in, I would say, technology, as in I started with traditional art, and I evolved into graphic design, and then into animation, and then film. So I would say that AI didn't just jump on us, right? I will give the example of photography. People frowned at when the digital camera just came out, people frowned at that because they regarded it as cheating. But look at what's happening today. If somebody goes and they say they go into a dark room to, how they would say, they would go to wash photos, that doesn't exist anymore, right? So my belief here is that AI is a tool, right? It is a tool. We just have to know how to use it properly. The same way a gun is actually a tool, you know. They use for hunting, but then it can be used to kill somebody. Same thing with a vehicle as well. All right, so I am taking a very balanced approach when it comes to AI. All right, I'm looking forward to having this discussion.
Thank you. Allow me to introduce the next two panelists. We have Bernice. Bernice is a director and founder of Joey Innovation Learning Solutions. She is a visionary, a forward-thinking individual whose education, both in St. Lucia and also overseas, has allowed her to integrate virtual reality into her classrooms to deliver immersive and transformative learning experiences.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, so I am director and founder of Joie Innovative Learning Solutions. It's French, so everybody always has a hard time saying it. Can you all practice with me? Joie? Joie. Thank you. So my role here today is really as a writer, educator. I've been an educator for 15 years, and I have seen students struggle. I have seen students struggle, and I am very happy for AI right now because it means that it reduces the workload on me, and it also means that it reduces the cognitive load that a lot of students feel when they are traversing the content in so many subjects that they're doing, sometimes 13, 15, sometimes 20. So you have this collaborator all of a sudden who you can speak to. You have a companion who you can feed questions, and they can give you, depending on the prompt that you've given it, They can give you all of the parameters for your possible answer. We have to know that AI is still, something that is in progress. There is a 63 to 93% chance that the answers are right. So not everything AI gives you is correct. So there's a plethora of such great media coming out right now in terms of artistry, in terms of videos and pictures. And I personally love what I'm seeing, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Allow me to introduce the final panelist, Jalem Judovic. Jalem Judovic is a sculptor, Goodwill Ambassador, and Caribbean laureate who hails from St. Lucia. His work in wood, bronze, and marble sculptures are rooted in St. Lucian and Caribbean culture. They are both enjoyed here on Ireland and also with an international appeal. He's been invited to various parts of the world, including China, the US, and the UK, Canada, and Africa, Martinique, not to mention some more locations. He has been entrusted with a work of creating sculptures for public spaces in several Chinese cities, where he has been erected several mountain monuments and sculptures to date.
Hello, everybody, fellow panelists, students. AI is here to stay, right? There's nothing we could really do about it but accept it. You could take the poetic approach like my good friend, Adex, or the more pragmatic approach like a Ted Sanford. But it is here to stay. So our role as artists is to find that middle point of how we merge into the technology. Because if you have to look throughout history, particularly the history of arts, you will realize that there's a common thread that goes throughout everything, and that is obsolescence. There's always a technology that threatens our existence, but somehow we survive and manage to do well. It doesn't mean that some people won't be on the breadline. You'll always get that people who have not kept up to the trends and so on. Paint itself is a technology. I discovered that last night. I never saw paint as a technology, but oil paint is a technology. Acrylic paint is a technology. The paintbrush is a technology. My chisel is a technology. But these things is what you call analog technologies. So I think the threat and the way we feel, the discomfort we feel about AI is because it's sentient. It feels like us. It has a mind of its own. But that mind is a conglomerate, is an amalgamation of everything that we've achieved as human beings. If you know how AI works, it works on large data models. So AI is really a hybrid of collective humanity. And I'm not threatened by that because that is very much what God is like as well. So I think we've created our own God. so it's a new religion. It's sort of like a religion. I feel threatened by it, but I also don't feel threatened by it. I also feel threatened by God too.
Thank you, guys, for the introductions. Allow me to also introduce one more individual. Her name is Krista St. Ange, and she's the actual moderator. So allow me to introduce Krista, who will then continue the panel discussion. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Now, tell me if you've ever heard a moderator with a voice like mine. Have you? No, so I'm the first. Hi, everybody, good morning. I'm Krista, and I usually do not sound like this. Literally everything that could have gone wrong leading up to it did. Listen to me. But I'm so glad that the introductions have gone through. I think this is my sign from God, Krista. Don't talk too much as the moderator. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm so glad that you got insight into who our panelists are. We have a very diverse group of panelists. And I'm just Krista who loves conversations and is going to lead this one best I can because we don't have much of a point. Well, I don't have much of a point of view as our panelists do. And I think everybody does have somewhat of their perspective or perception on AI, and they're looking forward to this conversation. And it's not me that I'm making you cough today because of my voice. Okay. Now, let's commence. So thank you all for sharing, and we're looking forward to the real part of this. So let's begin with our panel questions and get into the whys we are here today, and that is to discuss AI. Me alone, not troubling my ears? No? You all love me? Okay, thank you. The relationship between artificial intelligence, creativity, and education is evolving at an unprecedented pace. AI offers incredible tools for innovation, but it also raises fundamental questions about originality, learning, ethics, and the future of human expression, which each of our panelists touched on. Today, we hope to unpack these complex dynamics together, openly, thoughtfully, and honestly. So we begin our questions with this one. In your view, what has been the most significant positive impact of AI on the art world or education sector so far? Now, I'm going to just throw it out, and whoever, we discussed this, guys. We discussed this. We were a really good group, so I see Ted going, so go ahead.
Well, with the advent of AI, I've realized that we as educators, we had to revamp the way we teach our students. By saying so, I mean, I will use myself as an example, all right? I don't think exams are really important right now, as in we need to focus more on class discussions, all right? So when it comes to art, all right, let's just say I give an assignment. I tell them, let's just say study Van Gogh. Yeah? Give me an essay on Van Gogh. They would go on ChatGPT and, yeah, give me something on Van Gogh, and then come to regurgitate that. And I would take that probably and mark it and give everybody get 90%. And that is not, that's not productive at all. Not for me, not for the students, right? So here, I have to change my plan here and have a class discussion. Okay. Put the papers down and tell me, how does Van Gogh's work influence you as an artist? Do you like it? What don't you like about Van Gogh's work? All right. So I would say that, how do I put this? I would say that the advent of AI has encouraged us, right, to interact with our students more. It does have its advantages where we have students who are, I would say, they are introverts, right? They don't like to speak in class and whatever. So we have AI as a bot that they can talk to. But at the same time, this is hindering us from being social beings. And it's very ironic that there's something called social media, and it's making us very anti-social.
Why you throwing shade for us?
Pardon?
Why are you throwing shade for us?
Like I said before, is how you use it. All right. Now, I have noticed that being an educator for over 20 years, I've noticed that we have two types of students. We have students who are motivated intrinsically and students who are motivated extrinsically. So when you have to look at AI, the students who are motivated intrinsically, they want to learn more, so they would use it as a tool. So those students who are motivated extrinsically, they need some outside force to push them, right? So basically, they would use AI as a shortcut to just get the work done. All right, so with that, that's why I say with the class discussions, it will force them to speak and interact. That's the change I made in my classroom. All right, so, and I think that's a suggestion that I have for our education system. We should have a course on how to use AI as well, because it's my opinion, but AI works, the education using AI works hand in hand with the English language as well. Why? Because what you feed the AI is what it gives you. If you ask AI a specific thing, that's what it gives you. So a vague question, you'll get a vague response, a general response. But if you are specific, you will get what you are looking for. All right? And in terms of art, AI is perfect yet.
Okay.
It's not perfect yet at all.
If I might weigh in from my role as an education officer and long experience as an art educator myself. And that's why in my introduction I said I prefer to take a pragmatic approach where I look at the threats and opportunities. Society has developed because of shifts and changes. If everything had to stay in the world as it was created in the beginning, we would not be sitting down here today, not even on a chair. We have to learn how to integrate the AI, and as Jalim said, it is here to stay. It is part of our reality. So we have to learn how to navigate with this AI that has been introduced. Sometimes we may overthink or overreact and become overly fearful of how it may change certain things. What it has done is added a new dimension to tasks that we would have done before. And when you speak of tests, AI is going to challenge the education system, and not only for art, but for every subject area, to reimagine, to redesign assessment, how we assess students, how do we extract from them what it is they already know. And it doesn't have to be written tests. So it's challenging the old formats that we had for assessment. So instead of saying to the student, write an essay on Van Gogh, as you said, you would ask the student now to create something that shows their response. You integrate the AI by asking them to use the AI, and can you gather information about Van Gogh's works and so on? Because what AI does is make information more accessible, and it makes it faster to access that information. However, in the assessments now, you begin to ask them to create a response to it, which they cannot go to the AI to do. So you set your tasks so that they can actually generate something. It forces them to generate something themselves. So we really have to rethink assessment. We have to rethink instruction and be more strategic in it, and so that we do not use the old methods where children can easily just go and do copy and paste. And it will be more authentic. Another skill that comes out of it right now is the skill of discrimination, where students, first of all, as you said, they must be able to engineer correct prompts, which is a skill in itself and of itself. And then they must also learn to discriminate what the results the AI has given them. Is that relevant? You know, is that true? Is that related to the task I have been given? You know, so these are the cognitive skills that we are going to develop. And for the art world and the world of art education, it is really going to change the way that we assess
And I think
and
for a
we
bit,
instruct.
and I think for a bit, that's been something that educators have been bringing up, that assessment does need to be diversified. So it's almost like as we advance with AI, we're going to have to be forced to do so that we can see that the legitimacy of what's being presented by students, it's there. So thank you. Bernice?
Yes, so to add to that, I know Mr. Sandiford said that, yes, we would definitely need to teach our students how to use AI, and that is so true. But to follow through from what Jalim said, we are all creative beings. I know some people in the room may think, oh no, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, I don't create anything. But the truth of the matter is, we are from God, and we are all creative beings. But before we begin to learn how to use AI, we need to learn how to use our biggest companion, our own brains, right? We need to be able to learn how, we need to be able to actually teach ourselves how to learn as students first, to be able to solve these problems that we will be facing in whatever subject it is, whether it is POB, building technology, art, digital instruction, digital design, graphic design, whatever. So at JUA, we teach metacognitive skills to all of our students because that is what differentiates a good learner, whether you're doing art or POB, math or science, from a struggling learner. And if you understand how you learn, then you can begin to use AI to say, okay, what are the gaps in my knowledge and how can AI help me to, close those gaps so that I can get from a grade C to a grade A? Because that is the difference between St. Mary's College students and any other students. They have understood, and all the other students who are top tier, they have understood how to learn. So we don't want to use AI just only as a tool. It is a tool, yes, but it is also a collaborator that can assist us in getting to point B where we need to get so that we can, master all of our subjects in school, no matter what the subject is.
I'm usually very nervous speaking about these things. So this is me speaking now. Before was AI. I started my journey as an artist about 4 years ago. So I'm a baby in this game compared to a number of people in the room and other artists and colleagues of mine. However, 4 years ago, I made it adamantly clear that I would not use AI for my own personal reasons in my artistic process. My manager in the room, Creed Cool, 4 months ago encouraged me to use it. So my 4-month experience on it, I still tell a cautionary tale, and here's why. I'm a poet, I'm a writer, I am philosophical, and I take these things serious, particularly for words and definitions. So I want us here to think about it, and this is not a critique on people in the room, what they do, how they do it. It's more about a conversation of, when we use words and we talk about it, what is AI? Maybe we're not on the same page. And I think that's the conversation I like to have. So when we say AI is a tool, I actually say no, because a tool would be a coffee machine, a paintbrush, and other things where it takes human interaction to be able to make it do something for you. So you put the coffee machine there, you set a timer, the human is interacting with it to tell it what to do. It's producing something for us, but the human is at the core of it. What I think is changing over time, and I think if we look at AI, algorithms, social media, is that it's similar to us being amoebas and developing into human beings. It's at the amoeba stage right now. We don't know what the T-Rex or human version of this would look like because we're in the middle of it and we're experiencing of it. Some of us see it differently, and the reason we see it differently is that I see AI as an agent because these things that are being produced are doing the following. They're not tools. It's not a coffee machine that's just going to sit there. You're going to walk into the room, and the coffee machine is going to actually say, hey, good morning, Adex. I see that you didn't sleep well. I think based on the things you've been doing for the last couple of days, because it's learned me, one keyword that AI does is that it learns us. So it's learning who we are, how we slept, what we did, who we slept with, whatever we did. It's then changing the things that we've done and said, you had a cappuccino yesterday, but I'm going to give you a latte today. That's what AI is going to do. And what it does, which is the third thing, is that it's going to make a decision for us. That doesn't make it a tool anymore. It means it's learning, it's changing, and it's making decisions without us. And that's what AI is. A tool is a hammer. A tool is a cutlass. These are tools. I don't discount that. This is a mic, and it's a tool. To use it, we speak. AI is something that operates externally from us and makes decisions and learns. And we're getting closer to it, learning more and more and being able to operate outside of us, prompting it, asking it to do anything. And make no mistake, we are at the early stages of it, and we might be talking about the rudimentary things of like algorithms and simple iterations and uses of it. DeepSeek, ChatGPT. There are faster, more learned things happening that we haven't started to interact, And that's where I sit in it, just to tell a cautionary tale that perhaps these things need to be caged in a particular way, thought through differently before we start to use it, because we lost the algorithm conversation. Algorithms came out into social media and changed the entire cultural conversation that we've had. Democracy have changed, influencers have come about. We see it in our schools, the way people interact with one another, and algorithms are an iteration of AI, a junior version. So who knows how these things are going to change over time? I am not in any way saying we can get rid of it. I am not in any way saying that you shouldn't use it. We all will do what we need to do. But the question becomes, how do we define it? And how do we have a conversation about it and really speak truth to what they are? And that's where I stand. Or at least like to have part of the conversation. Not to be doom and gloom, but to just really be honest about it. It's not a tool, it's an agent. And it's going to be making decisions outside of us. And perhaps, are we entering into a new world? Look, I grew up seeing an 8-track, cassette, CD, iPod. I've seen things evolve quite quickly. It's even going to go faster now. And we're entering into a new world where things that are designed, created, made, or come into existence are not going to be actually created only by human beings. We're entering a world now where AI is creating things we never thought of and has created. So now we're entering a new world that's completely new. And that's, I think, interesting, but at the same time is worth a deeper conversation.
All right. So I think that we need to start with acceptance, right? First and foremost, because we have to accept as a civilization, as a species, that we've always wanted this thing secretly, all of us. We've always fantasized of the genie in the bottle, right? Somebody in the sky that you could pray to, and then things could happen. Which I believe in God, right? I'm just using this as an analogy. We are hardwired as human beings to want something that goes beyond the realms of our physicalities, of what we could produce with our brains, right? And there's always been a collective, if you have to be honest, there's always been a collective match, an approach to coalesce, to collect everything that we are, hence museums, hence galleries, hence repositories of who we are as a species. You know, we've always collected these things in one place, but right now it has gone digital. So I just see it as an evolution of what we've always wanted to become, which is a hybrid society, a cosmopolitan society, a collective of thoughts and ideas. I like anecdotes, right? I was reading something recently which said that AI is not going to take your job, but rather somebody using AI is going to take your job. And I will lean on what Adex was saying about is not a tool, but at the same time disagree slightly with it. I believe it is a tool. It's probably not a tool that we used to. It's not a tool that we used to, but I still believe that it is a tool. And the reason why I say this is because I use AI, right? And when I produce images with AI for fun, right? I use it as a sort of measuring stick for what I could produce within my own natural creativity. And I realized that AI has its own character. You could tell instantly when something is artificially produced. It has its own, there's this AI thing about it that is not human. And to me, what that does is that gives more value to my humanity, to my individual human expression. But I think what we fear of AI is probably the rapidity of AI, the rapidity of it. And that's probably what we need to perhaps not fear. Because for me, it has made me a lot more prolific. I could test concepts easily on AI and jettison them, decide what to use, what to not use. But AI for me is not a complete thing because we as human beings, we have a multidimensional brain. It's been proven by science that there's something more happening than just a bunch of neuroconnectors in our brain. We are not computers, we are spiritual beings. So I'm not intimidated by the idea of a technology that we created out of our collective will. And it's something that we always wanted, replacing us, It does has its dangers. Like I say, we have to be concerned to a certain level, but I believe that we have to take a more philosophical approach to it. I have a quote that I wrote down on AI, which says that technology too is made by humans and informed by their cultural values and intention, and the intentions of the designers. So, I mean, we just have to see where this takes us. Like every other technology, when electricity was invented in the early 20th century, people was very afraid of it, They thought that people will be electrocuted in the streets. It was just this dangerous thing that will end all of humanity. And to a certain extent, that has been true. So I'm not saying that there's not an element of truth in what we fear in the advent of any technology, but I believe that there is more light than darkness. Yeah.
Can you hear me? No. What's going on? Hi. Somebody help me. Technology. You can fix that, right? Thank you, Jalim. And that kind of segued into the next question that we have. But I'm one who doesn't just dip my toes in history. I like to throw my whole self inside of that pool. And like you said, our history is constantly humans being scared of new things. You mentioned electricity, but even in our St. Lucian context, I recall going deep into our newspaper archive, and I laughed. I was so surprised by it, because there was this column in our newspaper that said, television, yes or no? And it was this small excerpt of people asking whether or not the television is going to be a threat to anything. I mean, I used to be a zob on the television, but I turned out pretty normal, I think. Yes, but every time a new invention kind of comes into our human consciousness, we're always kind of scared of it, and we continue to have conversations such as this one. So I find it so very interesting, and I'm happy that we're having documentation, because even with the advent of AI, and constantly we said that we're at a beginning portion and introductory, we're in the middle, we don't really know, because we're still in the present. But I'm glad that we're having conversations with a St. Lucian context to it, because history will continue to do what history does. And I'm only imagining a future where AI is a commonplace, like how the TV has become a commonplace, and electricity with its hiccups here and there. But then we know we had conversations about it, because we do that when things are unfamiliar. Okay, so our second question, we don't have many students. I know young people, you're like to, we don't have many, I promise. Conversely, what do you see as the most pressing threat or concern that AI poses to traditional artistic practice or educational methods? Anybody? What do you see as the most pressing threat or concern that AI poses to traditional artistic practice or educational methods? Alex?
I'll try to keep it short. two things. One, on the traditional creative side, is clearly its ability to extract. So these data sets are of millions of images, artworks of artists who have not been paid, their consent never given, and they've captured. So the copyright and the laws around that have changed dramatically. So in the lifetime before AI, artists were protected within a particular sort of legal conversation and context. That has changed. I believe that is a big threat. So who is creating? So if AI writes this book with a prompt from a human being, who owns the book? Is it a book that can be copyrighted? So the conversation around who owns this and who created it has changed. For example, the little speech I gave at the beginning when I said it wasn't me was me prompting it to create a conversation for 5 minutes written by Arundhati Roy, a writer and somebody that I like to read out of India. I asked it to do the same thing for me in the voice of Mia Motley. I asked it to do the same thing in the voice of Guy Joseph. And it comes back with references. So who owns it and how this information, I think, is one of the big threats. The second one, I think, is environmental, and I think is something that people may not think about, is the anatomy of AI. When you take the time, and everyone should maybe, if you get a chance, Google Anatomy of AI. It's an art installation that was created. It's a visual board and a mapping of how AI is created. So you start from the mining of it. So we look at the mining in Africa and the labor that is required to do that, the rare minerals to create these chips, because they're not the regular chips that go into our phones. AI uses NVIDIA chips that are very specific chips that require rare minerals, and to get those, there's a labor that is required and a conversation that happens as early as that. The amount of water that is required to cool down the rooms, the data storage that is required, the sizing of the places. So from an environmental perspective, I think the threat is we keep talking about let's save the environment, but the advent of AI, what is being produced from Apple, Amazon, and all of those data sites are larger than half the size of St. Lucia when you look at the resources that they use. So for me, I think it's on the one hand, it changes it from the creative perspective legally. And I think the truth about it is AI is actually destroying the environment every time we do a search and we use these tools that we are blindly not recognized, like able to see, because it's an illusion of something so grand and beautiful when it's using water, people, and it's eroding the environment, the economic and democratic institutions that we've built over a number of years. Again, it's just a cautionary tale. It's not that I can remove it. I'm just here to shed light on the truth of exactly what we're using and what it does. And you can research it. Anatomy of AI, and it's just like one big wall, and it walks you through how this thing starts from minerals and where it ends up and how it exists to be able to, for us to just type in a prompt.
For me, it's more existential. Like, how quickly do we adapt to AI so that we don't become obsolete within our society? Because we have a creative industry, we have a burgeoning creative industry where people knew how to do things the old-fashioned way. So how quickly do we retool and we rethink and we adapt and we adjust and we reacclimatize? To me, that is of major importance, the economical impact that AI could have on our artists, which is steeped in our response to it. What is CDF doing? What is the Ministry of Creative Industries doing to make sure that we don't become irrelevant in this new onslaught?
Thank you for using that word. There's something worse than being enslaved, being irrelevant, and the tool could potentially make us irrelevant.
Okay, I think one of the greatest threats really is our own, the fact that sometimes we relinquish power to things outside of ourselves very easily. So for education, it can become very easy, to allow students, once they do the homework, they brought in the assignments, once it's done, and if we take that attitude and we do not restructure and force them into thinking for themselves, it poses a threat to us actually continuing to be individuals who think for ourselves. So I see that as one of the biggest threats, that we may become too complacent and too dependent, easily dependent on it, because it's comfortable for us. You know, sometimes like when you think of how long it took you to get a transaction done on your phone before, but now it's even faster. But we seem to have a gnawing hunger in us for things to be done faster. You know, that to be satisfied faster. So, and even the younger generation, that hunger is greater in them because they do not know the difference when things were even much slower. They don't know the analog world the way we do. So it poses a big threat. Also, ethically, we have to look at how AI works with art education. We are already facing the questions. So, miss, if the students did the graphic design and the AI generated it, can they just integrate it in the design for the book cover for the task they were given? You know, so we have to really look at how, as I said previously, in fact, our refusal to change our methods in order to force students to think and create for themselves and we remain complacent, this is what is really going to pose a threat to creativity, thinking, and our ethics in what we are doing.
Yes, so from an educator standpoint, to echo what Delphia said, it is the level of deep learning that students will engage in. So for any person to become an expert, they need at least 10,000 hours of practice and going through the content. So with AI, let's say we would remove maybe about 5,000 hours, no, 1,000. Because at the end of the day, you still need to generate your ideas, you still need to go through the process. And if you are not practicing whatever skills that you need to practice, whether it is graphic design or whatever, you will not be able to deliver on a job. So while you're at home, you can copy and paste the answers to the questions the teacher has given you, but are you learning? Are you engaging in deep learning? Because it's one thing to have this short-term memory, you can just regurgitate what AI said, but a few weeks from now, a few months from now, years from now, will you remember how to do whatever skill it is that AI was trying to teach you or your teacher was trying to teach you at the time? So that for me is the biggest threat, that our students will just use AI as a crutch and just copy and paste answers and just rely on AI for the answers, but will not engage deeply in creating their knowledge and creating their schemas in their brains.
I just wanted to chime in that, you know, we have to move away from looking at end products in our education system, especially when we are teaching art, that we're not, as the instructors and so on, we are not focused on students coming up with the end product so we can grade and what have you, but that we have to really focus on process and ensuring that they experience the process. You know, when you go to art school, one of the first courses you do is material methods and design, you know, those kinds of courses where, and you know, for students to really feel the sort of angst that comes with creating a work and how is it going to come out, and you know, you fear and so on. It's a good kind of fear because it's part of the creative process, and we have to be careful that we do not push students too early and all the time continuously into this reliance on the AI and so on to generate end products without really interrogating their process. And that means starts with conceptualization, and that's supposed to happen in your own head.
I believe in adaptation. a lot. But I also believe in adaptation with an open mind, right? And I always try my best to tell my students that I see the brain as it's a muscle, right? When you go to the gym, you're consistent in going to the gym, you build your muscle and so on. That's based on consistency, right? And the same thing with the brain. We have to think for ourselves. And that is my fear when it comes to AI. Our students will become lazy because they will depend on AI. Right? Take for example, last week, one of my students told me that they were checking for something to eat and they looked at what they had in the fridge and they asked ChatGPT, I have this, that, what can I cook? Yeah, and it gave them something, right? And that is, it's scary. It's fascinating and scary at the same time. I, Robot, The Matrix, Terminator, all these movies produced in the 80s and 90s, these movie directors have become prophets, right? And at the time I saw these movies, I was fascinated, right? Like, wow, even Back to the Future, right? Flying cars and so on. And right now, well, we don't have flying cars yet. Not yet. Right? And I will chime in on what Jalim said. We secretly wanted that. And a scary movie for me. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, Wall-E. Yes. And there is this ship out there with a lot of overweight people, and they're depending on the machines and the AI in the ship to do whatever. And they were in search of life. That's my sphere right now. We'll have to go back and look for life again. Look for that little leaf. All right? That's my fear.
But I think that's more interestingly, right? AI has presented us with this fleeting sort of chasm or threshold into ourselves, and to ask the seminal questions about who we are as a people, as humanity. Because there is such a vast, difference, and there's a lot at risk. Because if we surrender all to the altar of AI, right, and this thing crashes, there's a cyber attack, what happens to our history of knowledge, of human knowledge? And as Delphia was saying, what about the process? What about the process? What of the process of creativity that lends itself to the development of the human soul and the human spirit? Are we creative beings? Are we intellectual beings just to arrive at an answer? Is that our aspiration? Is that our ambition? Or is there beauty in the process? Is there beauty in the conceptualization of life? And because that's where we live. Because if you realize when we get to the destination, to the point of destination, we're on to the next mission. So it's never about the destination and this hyperlinking to this end result. That's not who we are. I think we enjoy a certain process. So I think there will be an exodus to who we are as human beings, because I think we've been losing that. So maybe AI is what will jolt us in that direction and realize that there's something variable within ourselves that we cannot lose. That the hegemony of this technology and the monotheism of it is not who we are as a civilization, and maybe we need to revisit our core values.
You know the quote about you have to be shaken to be awakened?
That's right.
So maybe AI is what may shake us and cause us to interrogate our humanity. Because as Alex said, that about the speed at which AI is learning all the time. And if we ourselves stop learning and we're continuing to let this thing learn for us, it will learn beyond us, and then we will now have, I mean, we're seeing it. You're going online and the thing is asking you, are you a robot? You know? I mean, if that question always disturbs me because I'm saying, so I am proving now to a thing that we created that I am a human and not a robot. It's these kinds of little questions and so on, and we really, really have to interrogate our humanity and where, and the AI is becoming more sentient. So it means that it's learning at least to become more sentient. So it is an imitation of our sensibilities, but we know it's not authentically that. But what is it that we have as humans that is going to distinguish us from that imitation of our human sensibilities? So it almost, I mean,
And
it's a
they say-
spiraling question.
And they say that the greatest compliment is emulation, by the way. So the greatest compliment is emulation. So it says a lot about us we've been not really valuing who we are, So maybe we need to do a bit more of that.
No, but I think we have to look at the generations as well. So why I say this is because, yes, we are having this discussion here because we are aware of stuff that we used in the past, okay? We used to study in a library, right? Then we were introduced to Google, right? So look at the generation they're coming up right now, okay? They started off with the Google, and now they are using AI. That is their reality right now. So AI is growing with the generation, so they are dependent on AI already. How can they be aware now? That is a scary thing.
Thank you, Ted. Yeah, I did grow up with an encyclopedia. I thought I was on that side, but apparently Thank you. Delphia for sure, but I so tired. I'm like, when are we going to stop being shaken? Goodness gracious me. And then Jalim, well, that's with Tesla and the self-driving cars. Every single time we have an advancement like that, we never thought it would have taken us to right here where we are. Jalim, I agree with you. There is a beauty. I mean, just look at poets. I don't know, no, from the poetic process. I think Adex, you're a poet. I don't know if we have any secret poets sitting here. Look at one. Boothia is one. But from the process of being a poet or an artist, we're literally surrounded by art. That authentic human experience, time and creativity, those are inextricably linked. So, and attention span also. Is that me? Attention span also. I know mine is far and past, but then there's just so much beauty when it comes to creating. It's maddening, it's insanity. You ask any artist, I pointing at Andrew Mondays, who is in the crowd with us. Tia, she's also a visual artist. Any artist, whether it's digital art, whether it's traditional forms of art, whether it's writing, there's this sickeningly sweet insanity attached to time and creativity. And we mentioned it to the end process. We focus on the end process so much, but then the significance behind something like the painting that's in front of you, behind you guys, is that when the artist looks at it, they know how many weeks and how many emotions that they poured into that art form, and that is where the significance comes. When we come to art galleries and we walk around and it evokes emotions, it's not the same emotion for every single person, and that is intrinsically the thing that I don't think will ever be homogeneous among humans, that we always accept advancements. I mean, I won't. I haven't used it yet. Give me a couple more months. Yeah, we won't have that homogeneous experience where everybody is fully on, or it's either this left or this right. It's never there. There's always a middle with humanity. And I am rambling on as if I have a voice. Yeah, so it's in that discomfort. In the name of efficiency, yes, but it's also substance there. Moving on, we're really talking about education, but I mean, we have students. So in education specifically, how do you see AI shaping the way students learn creativity and critical thinking in the future? We touched on it, but what are some of your suggestions? How do you view that?
Well, in terms of visual art, I see, well, I always say I see AI as a tool, but here I see a tool that can be used to gain inspiration. It saves time as well, because let's face it, we are living in a fast-paced world with a lot of deadlines. And as artists, there are points where we are in a stump. The ideas just not coming. We will sit there for hours and we have that job to do and the client is waiting. I mean, we have Pinterest and these kinds of things, but there is something specific that we are looking for. So, see this thing here, my iPad, that's there like my limb. Like, I mean, it's part of me. Because when I'm in a stump, I hit on DALI, on ChatGPT, and so on, and I will look for inspiration. I would put in that prompt, as in the client wants this, that, and it will generate 4 or 5 things for me, and I will use that as a guide. That's why I'll always say it's a tool, because at the end of the day, as an artist, I want it to end up to be something Ted Sandiford produced. Because my client contacted me because they want work from Ted Sandiford. All right? So I would use the compositions that I got from ChatGPT or whatever as a guide. As a guide.
I think the challenge is to reconcile the need or as I said, the hunger, that desire for instant gratification, for getting the end product instantly, because as you said, we work against a lot of deadlines. So it is trying to reconcile that desire to get things done quickly with the kind of intimate experience that you have from a process of creating through the traditional means. The smell of paint, the scent of the wood as you're chipping it, and you know, the sound of the chisel hitting the wood, your hand touching, melding that clay, that flow of energy and thought, the essence of you into your artwork and so on. It is being able to reconcile that experience, that kind of intimacy that we have with the creative process, and working against the deadlines, the I need to get an A on this assignment, and I need my students to finish SBAs and that kind of thing. It is that reconciling those two things, it's really going to be a challenge for education, art education. And even for us also as creatives, it is going to be a challenge. Because as you said, sometimes, you know, you have a job to do for somebody, you have a deadline, you are efficient and people know you to be efficient. Man, I gave Ted to do a thing in 2 days, I had it done already or whatever it is. You don't care what Ted used and so on. The fact is that you have the end product. So it's that end product versus that process. And as I said, the intimacy of the process, reconciling that with getting the end product on the deadlines.
So in terms of creativity, can I see a show of hands of people who have put in a prompt in ChatGPT and have improved their ideas? Students, raise your hand if you have used ChatGPT to help improve your ideas for school. Just a few, not many. So Ted, you're right. We need to teach our students how to use AI. Wow. What about the adults in the room? How many of you have used ChatGPT or any other AI tool to improve your ideas? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the time. Right. So for me, yes, that is the biggest positive of AI right now, that we can increase our creative skills. But at the end of the day, studies have already shown that human beings are actually more creative than AI. So there is no need for me to be fearful, because when I ask ChatGPT for something and I get 5 prompts because I want to limit it, sometimes I say 5 to 10, I will get a whole lot of crap, right? And I have to put myself, my skills, my knowledge, my experience, my desires, my inspiration into whatever prompt that they give me and mash it with myself so that I can get something better. So at the end of the day, we still have to know what we want to get and then use it accordingly.
What was the question?
In education specifically, how do you see AI shaping the way students learn creativity and critical thinking in the future?
I guess I'm an educator with my team. It's something I don't include AI in my creative process, and I've asked my team when they do, it should be something that's discussed. So I think from the creative from the education space, I think it should be part of the ethics system of consent or conversation to be able to disclose when this is used. So someone like myself who is seeing the art or appreciating it can make a discernment to say whether this was AI generated part or not. I think that's important to me. So I'm hoping that can come to fruition. I think, as I said, I'm new to being an artist, only 4 years. So I sit within my entire previous life trying to be intelligent. So I have a law degree, I've run organizations, I've done many things with an end goal in mind and did well at it. But AI is going to do much better at those things. I think what I'm trying to do right now as an artist, and I think that's where artists play a larger role in disrupting what AI does, is that we're trying to be better or understand what it means to be sentient, understand what it means to be conscious. AI cannot be conscious. To be conscious, you need to feel. You need to feel pleasure or pain. And I don't think we're going to get to AI being able to do that other than a simulation of it. So what can we do better, or how can the education system and everything, I think we need to, as Caribbean people, as St. Lucians, start to continue to play along with consciousness, being sentient, because when it came to the industrialization, the steam engine, producing planes, everything else, capitalism, everything else, tourism, we've lost in various ways. Not tourism as in like a product, but in terms of capitalism. You know, we're the end product of something always. And I think AI is going to produce some of these disruptions. So what we need to be able to do is interact better as people and be able to have conversations and community and culture is what I think. And I hope education can play a better role with that.
For me, the most important part of the puzzle is integration. How do we integrate anything into our lives? And that has always been the conversation. How do we integrate? And I think that is a very important part of the conversation that we should have about how AI is used in our educational system. We have to guard against a society that becomes colorless, insipid, soulless, and mindless. I think that's the balance that we have to achieve, right? I love the dystopian angle that ADEX is taken. And I always believe that we exist between Terminator and Sesame Street. That's where we live. I think that we were always meant to walk that middle ground, to be afraid of the darkness, but to aspire towards the lights, knowing that you get burned by the sun. So maybe we probably in the Goldilocks zone that we should be. And I think that's the battle is a battle for our souls right now. And if we lose at the rudimentary educational levels, then all is lost. These people are our future, right? So if we don't understand AI, we have to make sure we implant the right people in our educational system that understand AI and understand the advance, these technological advance, so we could guard what is valuable to us, which is our children.
Hi, future. I waking y'all up. Hi, future. I can't hear y'all. Hi, future. Y'all really tired. I thought future. So we're moving on to the final panel question, and that's just going to wrap everything up a little bit for us. Yep. So the last one is finally looking ahead. What skills or mindsets do you believe young artists or students will need to thrive in an AI integrated world? I'll repeat. What skills or mindsets do you believe young artists and students will need to thrive in an AI generated integrated world? Now listen, they're going to answer for you all.
I think the students should answer. I mean,
Twist.
what skills, or they should ask questions. I mean,
Let me just say my piece on this, right? Skills, spirituality. How about that? Spirituality. Very important.
For me, critical thinking. Critical thinking, that's why we have our flagship program, which teaches children how to learn or metacognitive skills.
Big up Joie.
Thank you for saying it right.
I think we should encourage creativity, have activities that could encourage the students to be more creative in everything that they do.
I believe we need to create more sensory experiences for students, opportunities for them to engage in those more sensory experiences. So they understand that they are a little more than just looking at the screen and one finger swipe away. Another thing that we don't think of, if you have to use the AI effectively, it's a large language model. Keyword, language. We have to look at our literacy levels. Not digital literacy before, but basic foundational literacy. Remember the three R's, reading and the writing, at least these two? Students, we need to address that and ensure that students, the literacy level is up to par, because if a child is not really literate, or a person, a society is not really literate, the products or the outputs of the use of AI is not going to be aligned to what our needs, what we're looking for. So we may end up really throwing ourselves off somewhere by not putting in correct prompts and so on. And it depends a lot on language. And in all of this, we forget the importance of language, because the prompts rely on proper use of language.
Okay, and education is not only about a building where children go to learn and there are teachers. I believe that education starts with the home as well, right? So we parents are to be blamed. When we have a babysitter, call a tablet, television, and so on, and we don't allow the kids to go out, we are to be blamed for this. We are to be blamed for the dependency on technology. And I'll use my kids as an example. They actually want to go out. And when they're young, they're 5, 6 years old, they want to go out to play. But the whole fact that we had to go and supervise them while they're playing in the bush or whatever, we don't want to do that. So use the tablet, look, go on YouTube and so on. So the parents have to meet the teachers and the schools halfway on that as well.
Just to segue into what Delphia was saying, right? About being able to be literate. My experience in life so far has been that vocabulary is very important. If you cannot express how you feel, then you cannot administer any level of therapy to whatever is creating the angst within you. One of my favorite quotes from the Bible or the quote or passage, is that in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God. in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God. What does that say about the power of the command, the power of the Word? And that's what AI responds to. So maybe this is our ultimate state of evolution. Maybe we are becoming gods.
Ooh, scary. What's it? How many Matrix movies?
3, no, 4.
Matrix 5 coming out, y'all, and we are the cast. Now, we'd love to open the floor. In the interest of time, we'll only take 2 questions, but we'd love to open the floor for questions from our audience here today. Maybe one from an adult and one from a very brave student. I don't have a prize for you, so don't ask me. Any questions? Don't be scared. I'm not scary. My voice just sounds a bit.
No questions?
Don't make me get. I think the mic have a range. You don't make me watch y'all in your eyes. Any questions? It doesn't have to be too complicated. Leon has comprehensive secondary school. Any questions? Why are you looking down? I like your pink sweater.
One from each school, Krista.
From each school. Oh, they're putting you all on the spot now. They want one from each school. Cicero, secondary school. Where's college? Y'all always have to start with college. Now, I went to say, don't make college show us up. Start ask the AI for questions. Hurry up. Any questions?
Any question. Doesn't have to be AI.
Legit anything. You have one? Lovely.
Good morning, everyone. I've heard the educators speak about the children not wanting that instant gratification in terms of getting an end product. My question is, how is the education system preparing those children to think differently? Because we all know young people are in an instant world. Everything must be instant for them. They want everything now. What is stopping them? How can we mitigate against them not wanting? Because for them, and the pressures coming from their parents, is results. They want to see results. With that, Alex says it's not a tool. With AI at their disposal, who is stopping them? Who is teaching them how to use it effectively so that they can use their gray matter that they were blessed with? Because it has to be a retooling of the mind, a mind reset, because that is who they are. So how do we change that around to ensure that they can use that? Because generally, young people not in the business of thinking long and hard. I want it now, and they're going for the now, irrespective of whatever we think. That is their era. So how do we mitigate against that, and how is the education system preparing them for that?
Thank you.
I think now there's a great need for us to invest in the things that develop personality. To respond to what Mrs. Wynne was saying about there's this risk of losing something that is dear to us, right? I think the panacea for AI, or the way we fight back is with culture. With culture, with spirituality, we have to develop core human values right now. We have to develop things that are essential to our humanity. We have to, sports. We need more art programs. We need more intellectual discussions, like this. We need like what Dre was saying. We need more public speaking. Courses. So our people could learn to express themselves and to realize, because we have to find our humanity in all of this. We cannot become robots. We cannot become robots.
I don't want to take this that I'm speaking for the Ministry of Education, but this is Delphia speaking before I'm quoted that I spoke for the ministry. I can tell you what we need to do. Of course, AI is upon our doorstep, and we have to begin rethinking, interrogating our curriculum, first of all. We have to look at the strategies, methods, and approaches for delivery. And as I said previously, we really have to begin re-examining our assessment methods. And notice I'm not using the word test. Our assessment methods, we have to re-examine it. One of the good things is that in the skills qualifications that my unit, for example, that we advocate and we've been pushing with the Caribbean Vocational Qualification and so on, they are work aligned. So students get real life experiences and so on, and the focus is more on the process, and assessments are done over a period of time where you look at the progression, the development of the child or the learner towards the end goal, rather than just looking at a end product, and you're not sure how they arrived at it, and you are just providing some sort of evaluation of it. So we have that to do. But the biggest challenge, I'm telling you, is going to be to change the mindset of the instructors, teachers, and administrators. And if we just think back of COVID and when we had to move instruction online, with that change, you had a lot of fight back, because I didn't get that teaching job for me to go, and nobody told me I had to be teaching in Google Classroom and Moodle and all of that kind of thing. And, so COVID is over, and some people are very happy to go back to the chalkboard and do business as usual. So I'm seeing that getting people to change their mindset is going to be very difficult. And so the ministry or the education system must have a proper change management plan and strategy in order to deliver on that.
I think there needs to be some sort of a policy to define, or at least allow people to understand what is a tool or an output created by AI or with a student or a human being, a creative. I think the education system needs to have that. I think also the government or creative body needs to come up with some sort of legislation. And I bite my tongue for saying that, because I don't necessarily like to see new laws or legislation come in place. But I take it from the perspective of ownership. If we're creating something, a student gives a prompt to create a book, who owns the book? Right now, I would not like to see a world where the student does this prompt and the book actually belongs to AI. So their ability to be economically independent or live in the world that we've created right now without them changing it is that it will not be viable for them. So what is the legislation that is surrounding the creation of these outputs for people to have ownership? Because that is what these things on the wall represent. Ownerships, a product somebody can purchase and buy and be able to exchange in exchange for their talent and be able to survive. And I don't think we have the legislation to explain around books and other items, visual products, who owns it at the current stage.
You see, the scary thing about this thing is, especially when it comes to legislation, is the fact that, yes, we implement certain things, and AI is evolving so much and so quickly that it will be obsolete. Something new is going to come out and so on. So I will piggyback on what Ms. Nitram just said here, is that when it comes to the educators, we have to change their mindset. We have to change their attitude based on that. I will give the example of when we tried to get rid of the report books and have everything online. There were actual educators who preferred to go to the school to sit down and write marks in a report book rather than stay at their home and just put it in. Okay, so this is an example of, okay, all the challenges that will be faced with that. And with this AI thing, I mean, evolving so quickly, it will be very difficult.
Yeah, for now.
Since nobody's giving in to my, oh, okay, all right, question. I'm coming.
Good morning. To my knowledge, the brain is a very, very long, winded cord made of fat, which houses electrical connections in what I like to. I had to break it down for me to better understand it because neuroscience can be quite complex. So it's broken into 4 centers. I like to call them substations. And I believe that when you actually do something, that you engage all of those substations. And I feel like when you put in a prompt into an AI generator, you're just using maybe a little bit of your frontal lobe, good bit of your occipital lobe because it's a lot of visual information coming in that it needs to break down. But you're missing out on using parts of your parietal lobe that you only use when you actually move. And you're missing out on using parts of your temporal lobe that stores memory and experience and houses emotion. So in this age of AI, how do we engage all of our substations and not just your occipital and just a tiny fraction of your frontal?
I'd like to say that AI is sort of, there's a parallel between the advent of AI and the lack of nutrition in our foods now, right? So if you realize how we've rectified that is by with supplements. So you know the kind of foods we have now, the refined foods, they overly processed, and as a result, we don't get anything much from them. So we have to now take supplementary things, vitamin D's, the E's, and so on, in order to compensate, right? So I think to combat AI and to combat any I would say onslaught, you know, we really have to supplement our lives with the nutritious things, which is why, to me, physical activity, culture is very important, you know, music, you know, just the whole plethora, the whole gamut of culture, you know. And when I talk about spirituality, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the intrinsic important things that we really need to invite, you know, within our educational system, within our daily routines, that could, you know, compensate for just what you say, for that lack of stimulation. We need to find ways to stimulate ourselves and all the parts of the brain that you just talk about, you know, which put more emphasis, you know, and I think that's where we should be headed. In, you know, culture, spirituality, physical activity, sports, all the things that we've been chiming about for forever.
Jalim, it's interesting you said that because this morning I was trying to think of a metaphor for AI. I like to think of things metaphorically. It gives me a better understanding of different concepts. And I thought of AI and I likened it to agriculture, where you have commercial farming, mass-produced crops, you know. So you have tons and tons of tomatoes being produced through commercial farming methods. You know, they integrate chemicals into the soil, they do this thing, but we have a lot of food. But then you have the organic farming, which sells, the product sells for a lot more. It has higher end value because the focus is on the process by which you arrived at these products. So we're looking at quantity as a proxy for quality and so on. And I'm saying that, you know, the artistic output of AI may be vast, faster. Whereas it might take me 3 days to come up with a concept for a costume or something, and AI in 30 seconds, 5 seconds will be able to generate several possibilities on a theme for me. But at the end of the day, are you going to pay more? The painting that we actually sat with for a few weeks and so on, and put our heart and soul and hands into, the value of it cannot really compare to the thing that is generated in the 8 seconds. You know, the output, the product, the commercial value of it. Will we put up an AI generated painting in a big gallery and travel half the world to go and see it in? Exactly. So I think it made me think of the threat when we kept thinking of, you know, as a painter or a sculptor or whatever, the threat it poses to us. We may become the new organic farmed artwork versus the commercially farmed products. So for me, I looked at it in terms of a metaphor like that.
Thanks for the question. I think since I've only used it for 4 months, I will not be using it again. I didn't use it to create an idea. So like, what would I paint? And it came up with this concept. I use it as a tool to say, hey, I want to do these things and I need to send a proposal to CDF, write it. So it did that, right? But there's a, sorry. Create the budget whilst you're at it and give me, so it was interesting to see that, but it created, and I was talking to my manager about this, that it created very virtual examples of interaction, and I started to get very averse to that. So I think I sit here as an individual to share with everyone here that you can be successful, you can be a well-informed individual, emotionally somewhat intelligent, and have fruitful conversations and not use AI at all in your life, in your creative process. And I just want to be able to show that option and still survive and still be able to make a living, okay?
Organic farm.
And pick cotton in Casablanca.
Ted?
So I must add that we are all habitual creatures. We do things by habit. And from an early age, once we start to, teach our children to use their brains, use your mind, right? They will continue to do that later on in their lives.
Thank you for our 2 questions. Students, let me be nice. Feel free, whatever question that you do have to ask our panelists. We have a student. Yes, oh my God. Whoa.
Hi, good morning. I have a question about AI. So you say that, like they said, AI, you will not be able to take over the job of arts, right? And an artist. But what will we do when it does learn? AI is kind of like a pest. It needs a host to suck all the ideas, right? So like, what would we do when it does learn from all of our things? And not only that, how can it will like it can take our job. Not only that, people are run by money. If they can get a cheaper way to get arts around their house, they will. So how can we say that it will not take our job if it can, and it probably will, especially because once again it comes back to money. You need money to buy expensive arts. But when you don't have the money and you want to impress people, what are you going to do?
Y'all, I'm so impressed right now. Thank you so much. Did you see that level of thinking? Oh my goodness, I went to S, big up S.
Okay, so when it comes to a true art enthusiast who has the dinero, the millions to spend money on art, they will not spend the millions on AI. Okay? The true art enthusiast would say, hey, that's a Dunstan St. Omer right there. I want that. I would spend $5 million on that. All right. And I've noticed that as well, that art enthusiasts, true art enthusiasts, will always remain true art enthusiasts. That's why I am not threatened by AI at all. It's a quick fix. That's just what it is.
And also, what AI has does, it has also broadened the spectrum of participation in creativity. So what I mean by that is, traditionally, people who will partake in art will call artists, right? And people who will buy arts we call patrons. But right now, anybody could create something creative, right? And I don't know. I'm still trying to find out what that means, like moving forward. But I think that if everybody is creative, that's a good thing, right? Maybe it's a predecessor or it's a starting point to you becoming genuinely creative in an analog way using a paintbrush. Maybe that's what whets your appetite, AI. But there is a threat, a threat that you was alluding to, that it will take jobs, right? I go to China to do a lot of my work, and I started to go in 2008 before AI and all of that. And I've seen the transformation of that society as well, where even the Chinese now, when you think of China, you think of a big labor force and 1 million people working in a factory. That's not entirely true, you know. The reason why the Chinese are very productive is because they use a lot of technology. They use a lot of technology, right? So I think it's a global problem. It's something that has to be discussed. And there is actually a very high-level discussion happening now where people are talking about, in fact, entire economies is talking about what they're going to do with displaced workers and people losing their jobs. And one of the solutions that they have come up with is what they call a global benefit. So what a global benefit is that they have to give people money to stay at home.
A minimum wage?
It's almost like what do you call it, social benefit.
Yeah.
And what I'm hoping will happen is that you use that money to develop yourself in creative ways. So if you're at home, maybe, and you're getting $300 every week, you might want to take a music class, you might want to go and paint, you might want to go and do something. So the displacement that it might cause, because we don't know, we have to ride that wave. It might lead into a development of or a super increase in creativity, you know. So maybe they might have a greater need for more creative assets, more creative products and programs and so on, you know. And maybe that might improve us as a species. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? We have to determine where we want to go with this. But to say that there's not be a disruption is not being totally honest. So your fears, I believe, is legitimate.
Are you an artist? Okay. I think, wonderful. I think what you should do is continue finding your voice and try to expand the word artist other than what you were taught and what we provided from our generation. And I think you will be able to find the ways to live with, work with AI, and be able to make it work. I mean, I sit here, I'm almost 50, and my experience is totally different than yours. But what I can ask you to do is to find your voice, because AI cannot take that from you. The more you find your voice and your creative process and where you want to go with it, the less important it is to have an end product. When I walked in, a friend asked me, so where are you going to put this as a commercial value, the art piece? And I was like, what? I don't create art to sell it. I don't care if it sells, to be honest. I honestly don't care. Because there are other works of art that I come, a bit provocative with the kids in the room, I won't mention it, but I use bodily fluids, right? And it's on display and it's exhibitions. AI is not going to ask me to create something with my bodily fluids. So what I do as an artist, and I sit here, is that I constantly make work to disrupt conversations, right? So this is my way of finding my voice. I can talk to you after.
I will want to add on the fact that sometimes I have to prove myself that I have to prove to the client that it wasn't done with AI, right? So this is why it is important to document your process as well. So while I'm painting or while I'm doing my digital artwork, I do a time lapse. So they can actually see I was the one who did the art piece. So this is the point we have become. All right? Yes.
Cool.
And one more. We'll keep it brief. I know everybody have places to be.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to speak about some things that were stated during the entire discussion. Back to the person that had the first question, the miss over there. I wanted to say when she was speaking and she said that a lot of children my age like things now. They want everything fast on the fast lane, as most people will see. I just wanted to state that not every child, depending on how you grew up, I think that's how your mindset will become. Because the way my parents raised me, and as I have become now, I do not want everything fast. Although it will be nice, it will be very enjoyable if everything just came to the snap of a finger. But I personally think that I like things to go back to the old ways. Sometimes I tell my parents that if it was created like a time machine, I would like to experience what you'll experience back in school, going to libraries. Because I grew up, as you said, children, when they were young, they like to go outside. Children my age now, like even my little brother, he does not want to go outside. I also stated to my parents that I don't think it's good because my parents shut him up with a device. I don't think that it's good because when I try to bring him outside, he doesn't want to go outside. He wants to play game. He wants to watch videos that does not help him with his brain productivity. And it kind of kills the little child that I had inside because when I was younger, we used to go outside, go in the fall. Whoever fall in the river, fall in the river. You climb tree, you fall off the tree. We learn from that. Whoever eat dirt, whoever get ringworm. That was our childhood back then. But when you look at children now, when you go by primary schools, you do see them running around, but it's the majority sit down under the gazebo, sit down under a tree, making TikTok videos, wanting to become influencers, watching videos, playing game. That's what we're growing up with right now. And yeah, it's very unfortunate. Um, also like to see that I also do not like the use of AI, like one of the panelists said. Um, for me, I think it dumbs down an artist to use prompts from AI to create pieces that's supposed to be worthwhile, that's supposed to be produced emotionally from how you feel, how you want to depict the experience. I don't think it should be used. Um, sorry, that's it for me.
Thank you for that. That's an AI panelist.
Another thing is also about AI with the rights for artists with AI. Very scary, very 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 scary. It's going to be like you have a piece and AI learns from that. It's going to make something very similar. Like the shadow going to be slightly different, and sometimes it's going to be your piece, and then all of a sudden now it's AI piece just because it changed it very slightly. That is also something that is very scary when it comes to AI and just taking art alone.
Ask it to write a poem,
Leon
give it a
has
prompt, and
comprehensive
say in the
laws.
words of Derek Walcott, and everyone will be surprised. what
But
this
just to
does.
put things into perspective, we as artists already do that, you know. So there's a huge thing about plagiarism within the human artist community, where
Our
we
panelists,
where we borrow from each other already. So AI is just copying us, like just copying us really.
our panelists really panelisting, eh? We have another comment.
Hi, good morning or afternoon now. I just have a quick comment on what you said about artist rights. I'm an artist and I agree that that it's very much a gray area when it comes to artist rights with the use of AI. But as St. Lucians, I feel like we have to be a bit pragmatic and honest about the current state of our artistic legislation. Even for example, with the example that Alex, I'm forgetting your last name, all right, Mr. Arthur gave about gave about the impact of AI on climate. There is a United Nations charter, I think it's the Artistic Charter for Climate Action, that gives international governing rules about how artists should try to lessen their climate impact and encourages members of the United Nations to adhere to those rules. And we know that United Nations, normally it's not something that's going to be enforced punitively. It's kind of left up to countries to make those decisions. And in St. Lucia, we haven't committed to a lot of those international regulations. Even the state of our, yes, we have copyright laws, but how we don't have very specific laws about consent. And part of that is due to the fact that we're a very new country, we're young, we just gained independence not so long ago. So, you know, it takes time to develop proper laws for industries that are fast evolving. But the current state of our artistic legislation does not reflect a lot of confidence in preserving ownership rights and other rights that are outlined in some of these United Nations conventions and charters. So I think before we can even get to the point where we would like to put in these more relatively new laws about artificial intelligence, I feel like we also need to ask ourselves the very hard questions about what is the current state of our legislation and what do maybe other countries already have that has nothing to do with artificial intelligence that we have not even gotten to, and then move on to artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Anything, panelists?
No.
No? May I just say, oh, you have something? Hey, we really have comments. I'm so happy.
Hi. So I'm just speaking as from the perspective of a young person growing up in St. Lucia. I also experienced going outside and playing the four. I have many injuries to show for it. Also, speaking as a person who, as an artist in St. Lucia, I like that now there is placing a bigger emphasis on art. I feel like maybe 10 years ago it wasn't the case, unless you were personally involved with the older folk who were doing it. Because back in the day, if you ask me, who is a St. Lucian artist, I would say Dunstan St. Over, and then to the end right there. Maybe Ted Sandorfer, but I didn't know his name at the time. I just knew the comic strips he made. So I like that now we're placing a greater emphasis on art, but also at the same time, it came almost equally at the same time that AI started to rise up. So now we're in a kind of a strange gray area where, yes, we're placing emphasis on art, but AI is here now to kind of make all about the new talent almost irrelevant. And I found a way to combat that is to, as Mr. Sandoval taught me when I was in his class, develop a healthy sense of perfectionism. So like, yes, you can generate your ideas yourself, use AI. I have used AI for some prompts and I'm like, I could do this better. I could use like 2% of my brain and do better. So I feel like when we encourage young people and also any older person wanting to get into art to just try, use 0.5% of your brain, and that 0.5% will be better than anything AI can ever come up with.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do encourage all of our students, if you do have more questions, speak to our panelists after. Please, they're not going to run. You want to take it? Or you want to do it now or after? Now? Now, okay. Okay. I love a brave person.
A comment or a question?
My question is, what if I want a picture of a mongoose to paint, sculpt, or whatever, but I can't find what I really want on Google, Pinterest, and can't get a perfect picture for myself? What if I ask AI to generate a picture for me to use as a reference? My question is, what if I want a picture of a mongoose to paint, sculpt, or whatever, but I can't find what I really want on Google or Pinterest and can't get a perfect picture of it myself? What if I ask AI to generate a picture for me to use as a reference? Can I use this picture? And if I do, does it limit me as an artist?
A mango,
Ooh.
mango as a what?
Does it limit you as an artist?
But the mango was a what type of mango? She said something specific. A mongoose. Ah, sorry. Oh, see, I asked. A mongoose. Okay. I mean,
I take it that you're asking this question with reference to your CSEC visual arts. And these are some of the thin lines that we're crossing. It depends which expressive form you're doing. If you are doing it for painting and mixed media, you can generate to stimulate that idea if you need a point of reference. So if you want a mongoose in a particular position, probably, and maybe when you Google search, you're not getting it, which maybe, I'm not even sure how that exists because the AI is really going to pull up from various sources in order to create that composite sketch image for you. You can use it, but of course, you cannot submit it as a product. So you can use it as a point of reference for a painting. However, if you were doing drawing, you are not allowed to use it. If you were doing graphic design, you cannot just generate, let's say you're doing a cover for a book on species of Caribbean mongoose. You know, you cannot just pull out, generate that prompt, pull out the image, and then just add the title at the top and say, voila, I'm done. Because what skill have you demonstrated? You have not demonstrated any skills in terms of composition and so on. And remember, the mongoose that you've generated, even for your painting, you need to be able to integrate it into your composition. So you yourself have to apply your skills in terms of manipulating art principles and elements and so on in order to execute it. You cannot just take this thing wholesale and just copy it.
Okay. And also keep in mind as well that when you're using AI, the lighting is not always on point. And then you have to look at the anatomy of the mongoose. Check to see how many toes that have. Yeah? All right. Okay.
Or it may have a leg coming out of a place that is not anatomically accurate.
what a curious question. So when you said use it, just so I understand how to answer, you meant use it to get a grade in class or to use as for an art piece to sell? An art piece?
A CXC exam.
Okay. So I mean, if when I grew up, we didn't have Google and we needed to use references. So we had to go out, we had to ask questions. So for me, I wouldn't even suggest using Google to get a reference of what this is. It's either from your own brain memory, chatting to people, going out and creating that image from your mind, your Google, right? But I think if you're using it to create an art piece and draw something and sell it, for you to use something that somebody else has created, whether it's a photograph, an image, for you to copy it and use it legally, you need to change it in 3 different ways. Otherwise, you are liable for something legally. And that's the growing up part about AI and other things that we're not talking about right now, which is fine, but you can't use that image unless you've changed 3 very inherent parts of that image to be able to use it for your own copyright. Otherwise, if it was mine, you're gonna have to pay me something out of it.
Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for your comments. Leon Hesselen, now while time is young, big up y'all. As we conclude, I want to sincerely thank all of our panelists for their candid, thought-provoking insights today. Your honesty and expertise have truly enriched this discussion, and I'm convinced that all of us be very appreciative for your comments. Thank you also to everyone who asked questions and gave comments, and to those who joined us online. It is through conversations like these where we share openly and listen thoughtfully that we can shape a future where technology and human creativity strengthen rather than replace each other. Thank you again to our sponsors, to the Cultural Development Foundation, CDF, and to all of you for being part of today's important dialogue. And I'm wishing you all a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much for contributing. Thank you for being here. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye.